So hello, everybody. My name is Bennett Tchaikovsky, and today we're going to be talking about meeting the California Board of Accountancy educational requirement to become a California licensed CPA. My disclaimers, and this is what's really, really important, okay? And so this first part of this video is for informational purposes only and represents the opinion of the author only. No representations are made whatsoever on behalf of IBC and or the South Orange County Community College District. Okay, so the California Board of Accountancy is going to make the final determination as to whether or not a course meets the educational requirements. Therefore, when you're going through and looking at this, if I say something, this is really my best guesstimate, and this is from talking with different examiners at the Board of Accountancy that are going through and reviewing your transcripts. But it's one of those things that you just have to remember that if somebody tells you, oh, this course meets the requirement, that's not necessarily true. And we'll go over some different examples of that today. Okay, so really important is to become a licensed CPA in California. And by the way, if we are doing accounting, if we're going to be accountants, is it important for us to be a licensed CPA? If anybody wants to unmute and answer that question, that would be great.
I think it's important if you want to go into public accounting.
It's not only public accounting, it's what I have seen happen. So in terms of my career, I started out at UC Santa Barbara. I graduated from there. I worked at Coopers and Lybrand. I was an intern there, and then I was there full time. And I'm not quite, I think I'm Gen X. I don't think I'm a boomer, but when I was going through, it was Coopers and Lybrand, and they later merged with Pricewaterhouse to form PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I was an intern there. I worked there for 2 years. And then I went to law school. I worked in industry for a while. And then I've been teaching. This is my 6th year full-time teaching. So most of my experience has not really been in academia. It's really been more working as a CPA. But the real important thing is, and I just want to share with you a story about the importance of being licensed, is that once you get to a certain point, like if you're working in accounting, you can make more and more money. I've known bookkeepers who have been making $100,000 per year. But the problem is they become trapped in those roles if they're not a CPA. The CPA allows you to freely move around and gives you incredible career flexibility. If you don't believe what I'm saying, or I'm sure most of you do, but if you don't, go on to Indeed.com and just search CPA in Orange County, and you'll understand the demand essentially basically for CPAs, especially right now. What's interesting, back in 2014, they were basically predicting that 75% of all active CPAs would be eligible retirement by 2020. And I think what we're seeing right now is kind of like that shortage, at least in California, when recruiters call me and they basically say, oh yeah, there's like less than 1% unemployment. So it's really, really important that if you're going to be in accounting, you want to become a CPA. I know it's hard. I know it is a ton of work, right? Our accounting classes are harder than any other classes that are going to be in undergraduate, but there's a reason for that. And it's something that you're learning a skill and you want to be a CPA. So we're right over here in terms of talking about what do you need to become a licensed CPA in California. And this is what we're going to be focusing on today, is you need a bachelor's degree plus 30 semester units. Okay. The other ones that are required are a year of work experience under an actively licensed California CPA. You need, and by the way, there's a designation difference. There's a G and there's an A. G basically means general experience. A means you have audit and attestation. The next one, which is always the fun one, is passing the uniform CPA exam. And then lastly, pass the professional ethics for CPAs, or the PEth exam. And so one of the things about this is I believe it's a take-home test, and I think you get like 3 tries, and there's only like 3 versions, and I think you can use online resources, or at least that's what I've heard from students before, so that's not very hard. The other important thing here is that I'm focusing here on today is the California Board of Accountancy educational requirement. For example, in New York, if you were to become licensed there, you actually need to take intermediate accounting at a 4-year school, at basically as an upper division class at a 4-year university. And the reason why that's kind of interesting is that at IVC, I have film studies majors who come back and want to become CPAs. So they'll end up taking intermediate accounting with me at a community college, which is acceptable by California. However, if they were to travel to New York, they'd have to retake that course. So that's what you need in order to become a licensed CPA. And then before we get into this though, I want to just take a moment here to kind of keep our eyes on the prize. Now, this is a resume that was given to me by a former, I think she's now working at RSM, but she gave me this resume, and I think it's one of the better resumes, and it's a resume that I have posted as an example on my faculty website. And one of the things here is if we look under education, right? When you're going out and you're interviewing for a full-time job, what employers want to know is what's your status, okay? And what do I mean by that? It's like, well, the first thing they're gonna wanna know, what is your cumulative GPA? What's your accounting GPA, right? That's just kind of a starting point. As a real quick side note, if you have a really bad GPA, but you're working 40 hours a week, you need to make sure you're emphasizing that in your resume. But over here is what we get really to the good stuff. So many of you will be graduating with Cal State Fullerton, maybe with 120 semester units, maybe a little bit more. But a CPA firm is not going to want to hire you until you've met the educational requirements to become basically to become a California CPA. And the reason being is that if you, for whatever reason, they want you focused on your work 24/7 when you're at that firm. And so they want to make sure that you have that bachelor's degree plus those 30 semester units when you're starting full-time. And so when you're showing your graduation and then you're showing over here, it's a little bit more, I would say, the more than CPA eligible. And we'll get to that in a moment, but it's CPA eligible. And I would also really say meeting that educational requirement. So the importance of what we're talking about today is that when an employer hires you, they don't want to see that you have 120 semester units. They want to make sure you have the full thing done. And to tell you how critical this is, in my ethics class, I think it was maybe like 2 years ago over summer, I had a student approach me and said, "Hey, Bennett, I am going to be working at PricewaterhouseCoopers and I'm starting in September. And they told me that if I don't take an ethics class, they're not going to let me start." So of course I let that student start. And it's one of those things that, again, the firms do not want you to have any kind of educational requirement lingering over you when you're starting at a firm. So that's enough of my talking, at least for the moment. So does anybody have any questions in terms of why the educational requirement is so important, or does anybody, any questions on that part? So please feel free just to unmute and ask questions. Matthew, did you have a question?
Yes, I did.
Sure.
So you were saying that they want to know that you have all the semester units done and whatnot. So are they not going to look at you if you
No, they absolutely will look at you, right? They're going to be looking at you. And of course, when you're going through and interviewing, you want to start as early as possible, because the way recruiting works nowadays, it doesn't necessarily start at the freshman year, but I'd say certainly now by the sophomore year, the earlier you can start the recruiting process, the better you can do. And just remember the recruiting process is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So it's about going to all of your meet the firms, going to all of your different accounting society events. It's really, really important that you go through and do those things. What they're going to want to know though is like, when do you have that educational requirement done? So if I were to say here that my expected graduation say was, I don't know, we'll say it's like May of 2021, I would also want to write in here is that CPA educational requirement met in May of 2021. So that, or if it's not going to be until September or December, that's fine. But you really want to make sure that the firms know, because, so Matthew, their greatest fear is that when you start working at a Big Four firm during busy season, how many hours are you working a week? It's probably going to be close to, I've heard different stories, I'm sure you have too, anywhere between 60 and 80. And it can sometimes be more than that. And if you're starting at an accounting firm and you only have 120 semester units, there's going to be, that's a problem. And so that's why the firms basically want to make sure that you have your educational requirement done prior to starting full time. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so any other questions on this front before we keep going? Okay, so let's kind of go through here and so right over here, you'll see basically so there's two different parts here. What do you need to sit for the exam, and what do you need to become a licensed California CPA? And it's a very important distinction. To sit for the exam, all I need is a bachelor's degree. And by the way, it can be in film, it can be in sociology, it can be in psychology, it doesn't matter. It's a bachelor's degree. However, to sit for the exam, I need those 120 semester units, and then I need to have these two areas, which I call Group A and Group B. I have to have those parts completed, right? So that's what's really important. So to sit for the exam, I need to have basically Part A, or excuse me, Group A and Group B, or what I call accounting subjects and business related subjects. I need to have these completed in order to sit for the exam. By the way, is it nice to have the CPA exam done prior to starting at an accounting firm full time? What do you think? Anybody want to raise their hand or say hello? Okay, Tchaikovsky, the reason why it is so important is that if you can pass the exam prior to starting, think about this. If you're working a busy season, 75 hours per week, and you have to go back home and then start studying for the exam, that can be extremely difficult to do, right? So if you're able to pass the exam prior to starting, that's amazing. The other reason why becoming a licensed CPA, what is so important, is that if you are working at an accounting firm, most accounting firms will not let you reach the manager level unless you are a CPA. So passing the exam and becoming a licensed CPA becomes more and more important over time. So if you're at a firm, essentially, ultimately, they will not let you essentially go up to like that next level. Okay. So with that being said, are there any questions about this part here? Okay, so.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
For a business administration major with a concentration in accounting,
yeah,
how many of these units does the bachelor's degree cover?
Doesn't matter. The bachelor's degree, like, okay, so here's a great example. I had a student who came in and she was a film studies major at Cal State Fullerton. She started working at a local company. She was making about $75,000 to $80,000 a year. And what she realized really quickly is, going back to the earlier point I made, is that she could no longer be promoted unless she had the license in accounting. So she went back to IVC. She started taking these different classes. So what the Board of Accountancy is really concerned about, it does not matter the major, right? Because you're a business major, it's going to be, we'll get to that when we actually do the mappings. It's going to be a lot easier in terms of going through and filling these requirements. But look, as long as you have 24 semester units of accounting subjects, 24 semester units of business related subjects, 20 semester units of accounting study, and 10 semester units of ethics study, doesn't matter the major.
Right. What I mean is how many of these can I check off upon graduation?
Oh, we'll go there in just a second.
Okay.
And what that's really going to be is that my recommendation to you, and I'll kind of show you some examples, is that what you're going to want to do is take all the classes that you've taken to date, and then you're going to be wanting to put those on, get those onto like an Excel sheet, and then I'll show you the steps that we'll go through and do.
Okay,
Sound good? Sure, no worries. Okay, so we're right over here in terms of, so this is the educational requirement. If you don't have this, I will put the link at the bottom of the YouTube video that I'll go through and share. So let's go over here. So again, okay, so this is the resume, and let's go back over here. Okay, so over here, so again, basically a bachelor's degree, and then you're gonna need the other parts of it. Okay, so some other things right over here, and this is really kind of important to know. This is just from the California Board of Accountancy, and the California Board of Accountancy is going to be going through and reviewing your transcripts to see if you're eligible. The most important thing is they will not pre-approve any course. So if you're taking something and you want it to be approved, that's a problem. Okay, and also too, if a school is listing out courses that guarantee approval, watch out, because the Board of Accountancy has the last word. I will never forget when a former student of mine from a very highly ranked public institution sent over to me a listing of classes that their department had said, oh, these meet the requirements. I actually went to their department head and I said, you need to use disclaiming language. No one can say that. So if you see somebody doing that, it's not the truth, right? The Board of Accountancy has the last word, but what we're going to do is we're going to show you how this works. So the Board of Accountancy accepts courses from accredited institutions. So this can both be four-year schools as well as community colleges. As long as the institution is accredited, it's good to go, okay? So a bachelor's degree can be in any area, as we were just saying. And also too, if any of you are international students, the Board of Accountancy will accept bachelor's degrees and units, okay? And the thing with that is that you have to get your degree translated by an appropriate institution. So, and what I mean by that is, do we have any international students on the call today? Is anybody here an international student? Okay. So just to kind of show you how this works really, really quickly, this will not take very long. If I come over here, and this is back over to my faculty website, which I will give you a link at the end of the lecture today. So if you're an international student with a bachelor's degree, if you come over here and then you're going to go over down over here. Okay. So the Board of Accountancy basically has a list of different, basically of different agencies it will accept degree translations from. So if you have a degree from a foreign university, what's really important just to kind of go through and do, and let's see if this one works right here. Okay, perfect. So these are the CBA, California Board of Accountancy approved foreign credentials evaluation services. So what you would do if you're an international student, if you've taken classes abroad, what you would do is basically put them through one of these institutions, and then they'll send the results over to the California Board of Accountancy. So that's really what that is over there for. Okay, So a couple other things in terms of going back over here is one of the things, so I teach accounting ethics at Irvine Valley College. One of the things I kind of encourage my students to do is to take accounting ethics, basically what I call pass, no pass, or what some people call party, no party. And the reason why is because the Board of Accountancy will accept classes in that way. Okay. So, and some other things too. If you repeat a class at different institutions, the Board of Accountancy will accept it. And how do I know this? When I started offering intermediate accounting at Irvine Valley College, which I teach in fall, one of the questions I had is that said, hey, if I have a student who wants to get a jump start in terms of, going through and learning intermediate accounting, and they retake that class at a four-year school, will that count? And they said, absolutely yes. So you can absolutely repeat the same class at just different institutions. Now, why you would want to take intermediate accounting 6 times, I don't know. Maybe twice is okay. One other thing over here too is that when you're taking an accounting class, there's a real difference between when you're taking something to meet the educational requirement versus CPA exam preparation versus preparing for you to become an accountant. The example I will give you is at Irvine Valley College, we have Accounting 204, which is accounting for QuickBooks. And that class has no accounting prerequisite. However, what it will do is that if I look over here, that Accounting 204, or accounting for QuickBooks, will meet the accounting subject requirement, but it is not going to be preparing you necessarily for the CPA exam, just because the CPA exam really goes through and does things on another level. Okay, so, and then over here, just really something too, is I know some of you may not be taking advanced accounting, or you might not be taking some certain courses that you might be freaking out and saying, oh my God, I don't know this. The reality is that the best preparation in terms of becoming basically for passing the CPA is to take classes like advanced accounting, intermediate accounting, taxation, auditing, and cost accounting. If you don't take a particular course, when you go to take the CPA review, whether it be Becker or anywhere else, those are going to be the ones that are going to help you learn that material the way you need to learn it for the CPA exam. You absolutely need to use a CPA review course. It doesn't matter which one. I would just choose the CPA review course that is best for you. The exam is hard, but it's doable. But it's one of those things that you have to put the time in. If you've taken harder classes, it's going to make it a lot easier when you go to study. One of the other things over here is that there's something called CLEP. It sounds like something else, but it's actually a college level examination program. The general rule is if you've taken AP courses or if you've taken a CLEP exam, these can be used to fulfill or towards the 150 semester unit requirement. The key is to get those units though to count, they have to appear on a college transcript. So if, for example, Cal State Fullerton, if you got like a score of a 3 on an AP exam when you were in high school, and if Cal State Fullerton says, no, we only accept 4s and 5s, if you find, say, a community college that will accept it and put it on your transcript, that's a way that you can get that class through. So my recommendation to you is that if you have taken AP courses at in high school and you didn't do, or if you got like, say, a score of a 3, and again, I'm not really aware of this, but at some community colleges, if that's acceptable to put onto a transcript, I'm not sure if it is or not, but if it is, then that's what you want to do. You want to basically send your high school transcript to that community college, let them put that on there So you're enrolling and take a class there, and boom, for the Board of Accountancy, they'll be looking at those units. Another thing right over here too is when you're taking 100% online courses, as we are all going to be doing now for the next 8 weeks, how do employers look at that? Obviously, we are in truly uncertain times. However, I would say that for online courses, it just depends on what it is. I would not want to be taking intermediate accounting in an online format if I didn't have to, but if it is what it is. Okay, so we're going to start going over here. And before we go any further and talking about the mapping, are there any questions about anything I've brought up? Okay, great. So right over here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of go through some different examples for different, basically for different individuals who have gone through and have kindly have shared with me their transcripts. So right over here is what we're really going to be trying to be doing is to say, how do we take our classes and map them against this? So over here, if you go back over to my faculty website, and I will be putting up a link to this after the video, right over here, sample mapping. And this is when we're going through and looking at what everybody is going through and is prepared today. This is a sample mapping. So right over here, if you want to see how to actually go through and do this, you can follow the link. You can go through and make a copy of this and go through and figure this out. So it's not everything's here. Don't reinvent the wheel. Most important thing to do. Okay. This one other resource I have here at Irvine Valley, what I have done with our course catalog, and this was as of a few years ago, a student helped me with this, is that I went through our course catalog and I did a sample mapping. And so right over here, you'll kind of see which, basically which different courses over here fall into which different groups. So right over here, and this again is where did this come from? This also came from my faculty website at IBC. So these are all the different classes that can basically help you, basically meet that educational requirement. Okay, so let's go back over here and let's start kind of looking over here at some different ones. And I took off the student's name, or I basically left the first name that's right over here. And let's just kind of go through and take a look. So we have a student here who basically took classes at Saddleback, basically over here, personal, street law, intro logic, American cinema, interpersonal communication, US history survey, world history, beginning algebra, ideas and events of physics. So we're going down here, and then here are all the courses that are down at basically here at Cal State Fullerton. So right over here is, and basically we've got that end result here of a total of 151 semester units. So the first part that we're going to go through and do right here is that we're going to take a look at the accounting classes. So here the person is appropriately put in out. The rule is once you assign a class to the area, you can no longer apply it to a different area. So for example, if I'm up here in accounting subjects, right, I can't say, oh, accounting 1A here and accounting 1A here and accounting study. And before I go any further, let's just kind of break this down before I actually go into someone's part. So the first one here is accounting subjects. So it's 24 semester units of accounting subjects, things like accounting, financial reporting, auditing, financial statement analysis, taxation, and then external and internal reporting. Generally, if it has accounting in the title, it's going to work. Over here for business related subjects, all these classes here, and if you went crazy on the accounting and you wanted to put more down here, you could add that in here as well. Over here, accounting study. Now, this is an area where a lot of students will sometimes get confused on, and it's kind of rightfully so. The first one here is a minimum of 6 semester units in accounting subjects. So what happens here, you fill this up, then you only need another 6 semester units of accounting. This 20 semester units of accounting study does not all need to be accounting. Rather, what it can be, like right over here, it's got to be a minimum of 6 semester units, and then it can be a maximum of 14 the business related subjects. What we'll see right over here is that the maximum of 9 semester units. So these are just the different ways you can meet the 20, but you need a minimum of 6, and then all these other areas can basically help you go through and do this.
I have a question.
Sure.
If I use my upper division accounting subjects to apply to that first 24 semester units in accounting subjects,
yes.
For my minimum 6 semester in accounting study, can I use lower division accounting classes?
Lower. Okay, that's a great question. There's no difference between upper and lower division accounting, right? There's no difference. In fact, I guess if you could go to 20 different different community colleges in California and take financial and managerial accounting repeatedly, you could probably meet them all. I don't know how that would work out though in terms of the CPA exam. But no, it doesn't matter if it's lower division or upper division. Doesn't make a difference. What they're looking for, does it have accounting in the title? Or is accounting in really like in that subject line?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure.
I have
so right over here, so then you're going to get 20 semester units of accounting study, and then you've got things over here. So this example right here, what Brian went through and did, and we saw this like right over here, ideas and events of physics. So when I look over here, I can say, oh, ideas and events of physics, this could probably fit in somewhere over here as a skills-based course. Foreign language, right? So if you've taken any kind of foreign language, it's going to fit in here. And then down here is the 10 semester units of ethics study. Okay, so you need to have a minimum of 3 or 4 semester units in accounting ethics or accountant's professional responsibilities. And over here gives me why I get so many enrollments at IBC from my wonderful Cal State Fullerton students, is that the course must be completed at an upper division level or higher unless it was completed at a community college. So you are fully free to take accounting ethics at Irvine Valley, Saddleback, wherever you want to go through and take it. Over here, there's also other classes that may meet this accountant's professional responsibilities. You can check with the Board of Accountancy, but I know that my class specifically meets that requirement because it's called accounting ethics. Okay. So then over here, we've got the maximum of 7 or 11 quarter units in the following subject areas. And so over here, auditing, business leadership, corporate governance, so if it has any of these kind of titles in it, you're going to be good to go. Last one over here is 3 or 4 semester units in courses from the following disciplines. What's fascinating is that if you're a student in Iran, I think you actually have to take a class on Islamic law, which actually require basically, or history of Islam, which is actually going to go through and qualify here as a religious course. So even if you think something may not, count because of what it sounds like, it generally will. Okay, so let's go back. So are there any questions on this part up here?
Yeah.
Sure.
So if I'm taking auditing, did you say I cannot apply that to accounting subjects and ethics study?
No, you cannot. You have to, you apply it to one, right? And then basically you do one or the other. It does not, you cannot double count. I'm glad you're asking that question because that's a common mistake a lot of us make. Generally for auditing, you can probably put it down here, but I have a feeling when we start going through, I did go through and look at a mapping of classes because this is part of our GAP 4.1 for those students. If they were to take all the required courses between IBC and then over at Cal State Fullerton, generally you should be able to meet most of these requirements based on the business courses. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, no worries.
Does the double dipping apply to all the areas? So like for the minimum 6 semesters in the accounting?
Absolutely, there's no double dipping, right?
Okay.
So you've got to, it's a single dip cone from Foster's Freeze. Double dipping, well, actually double dipping is allowed at Foster's Freeze. But when we're going through and we're doing this, not that any of you would get that reference, but as we're going through here and we're doing there's only single dipping, right? So, but on that point though, what was interesting is that I've had students, and let me see if I can actually find one here. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, here's a great one. Okay, so right over here for Trong or for Trang, apologies Trang for pronouncing your name incorrectly. Right over here, so say if you had like right over here, what if you only had what if you had 26, meaning that what if we added all these up and then you would get to say 26, but it's required of 24, and this 26 units say consisted of 3 and 4 unit classes, right? You might be saying to yourself, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Now the Board of Accountancy, what they'll do is they'll take this difference right here. So they'll take this difference, which is literally going to be like 2 units, and they'll basically put this 2 units down here for you in basically down here in group C. Does that make sense? So if you've gone over in this area, say by, I don't know, by like 2 units, and none of your classes are 2 units, then they will take that overage and put it down into group C for you, basically from the accounting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, if it's like a 3-unit class, can you take a fraction of a class and put it into another group?
Yes. Well, you can't like, okay, so I can't say, oh, I'm going to put like 2 units of auditing here and then 1 unit of auditing here. They won't go for that. It has to be like you're going to put it someplace once, and then that's pretty much it as far as like the subject goes. But if for example, though, what if you had 26 semester units, right?
Right.
In accounting subjects, what they would do is they would say, okay, you only need 24. So I'm going to take that difference of 2 units and put it down, say here. That's what they would do.
Okay.
Or at least, and actually I should say, hypothetically, that's what they would do. But and again, when I have spoken with examiners over the years because I would get some of these questions from students. And so I would call up the Board of Accountancy, and that's what they would share with me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? These are great questions, and thank you for asking these. Are there any questions up to date or any other questions here so far?
Are you going to be posting links to these resources that you're using?
Oh, absolutely. And they're free,
Great.
right? 100% free. And hopefully I'll see some of you who I don't already see already. If you need to take accounting ethics or another accounting class, hopefully I'll see you over at IBC.
What's your ethics course like?
It's a lot more fun than my financial accounting class.
We're intermediate for sure.
Well, so look, my financial accounting and my managerial accounting classes are problem based. And if you've talked through anybody who has suffered through one of my accounting classes, the reason why I make my classes for the lower division ones problem based is mainly because you'll sometimes see me, I try to Cal State Fullerton meet the firms as much as I can to help my former students recruit. Just because what's kind of crazy is that one of the partners at PwC, Greg Nihos, I worked for him when he was a manager when I was going through public accounting. And then when I was CFO of a company, he was actually the partner on the engagement. So it's kind of a crazy small world, but I will go through there. And the reason why I give crazy problem-based exams is mainly because I want to be able to look your employer in the eye and say, hire Sharon, she's amazing. I want you to hire this employer for me. I want you to hire my former student and she's going to do a great job. And I can say that if I've given problem-based exams because I know you can actually go through and do the work. Now, transitioning over to ethics, right? My main concern in ethics is that as accountants, what do we all deal with? What are we dealing with, which is so not necessarily unique, but what is it that we deal with as accountants? What are you handling or what are you controlling? It's not a trick question.
Financials, like financial information.
Financial information, but more importantly, money, right? We're all controlling money. Do people go crazy around cash?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They do, okay? And so with that kind of in mind, what you want to be really kind of thinking about is that mindset that you're going to need that when you're in professional practice. How do you deal with psychopaths? How do you deal with different personalities? What are the different things that I can really be looking for as an auditor or as basically in the accounting field? And in my ethics class, it's definitely much more focused, I think, around behaviors and the like. And it's just because when you're starting to work as a professional accountant, my general advice to students is that you want to take like a consultant's approach, because if you become emotionally involved with the company that you're working for, that can lead to an absolute disaster. Now, I'm not saying to be like completely cold and distant and all those other kinds of things. It's just really more for your success. You have to really adopt a certain type of mindset. And we do review cases, right? We will go through Enron, we will go through WorldCom, we'll go through different things. But my ethics class is very, very different than my financial or my managerial accounting classes, just because I'm really trying to awaken you to what's out there. And, you know, the ethics class that I teach is fun. I will make you do a project. The project can be pretty much on any different type of ethical conflicts. I had a student who wrote a 20-page PowerPoint on the Man in Black from Westworld. I've had a student write, how many of you watch Black Mirror? You watch Black Mirror? Yeah. So I had a student write a 20-page paper on crocodile, right? So those are, you know, there's things that are out there that I'm really trying to get you to go through and look at, to really kind of further delve into, to really kind of see like, what was it about somebody's childhood? What was it about this character? Why did they just choose to do the decision that they do? So my ethics class is, I did not mean for this lecture to become a plug about my accounting ethics, but that's really what my focus is on that particular class. I know that so you'll see some case studies, but at the end of the day, the book I use, I think is really, really good. It's very readable. Most of the students like it. You can buy it for $40 on Amazon or rent it or whatever you're going to do. So it's definitely a class where I think most of my students, they seem to enjoy the class much more so than financial or managerial. But by the time that they get to me for accounting ethics, they pretty much have already had you know, most of like their intermediate accounting and the like. Did that answer your question in a very long-winded way?
Yes.
Any other questions or before we keep going? Okay. So going back over here, going down over here to accounting study, and then we have over here ethics study. So let's take a look here. So Sharon was very kind to share this with me over here. The one other thing I would say, Sharon, is I just kind of copied and pasted this from the sheet that you sent me, but here's something that's like really raw, right? So right over here. So computer accounting with QuickBooks. So let's do this here. So we got group A, we're gonna have group B, and we'll just start with those two classes, right? Those two groups right now. So here for Sharon, and Sharon, I will be sharing this with you after the presentation. Okay, so this is computerized accounting with QuickBooks here for Fullerton. So we're going to put this in group A, and this is what we call accounting subjects. And group A is my designation. Okay. So here, personal financial management. Well, let's go over here and take a look. So for personal financial management, where do we kind of find this? Oh, finance. So let's go ahead and put this personal financial management over here as group B. Excel for accountants. Wow, accountants. This is more than likely going to go into group A. Communication fundamentals. Okay, so let's take a look at this over here. So with communication fundamentals, what I could do is right over here. So I've got a maximum of 9 semester units and other academic work related to business and accounting, and 3 from any area. So right over here for Sharon, what we can do here is under accounting study. And what we're going to do is we're going to call this basically 9 semester units other. And we can take this communication fundamentals class and put this right over here. Okay, so college study skills. Okay, so for college study skills, I don't really see, and I might just be blind, but I don't really see where that would apply. So we're not going to put this in any particular area. What I'll just do is I'm just going to leave this separate up here. Okay. Now this is an interesting one. Spreadsheets 3, if you go over to IVC and you take a look at the class, and if I look over here at Spreadsheets 3 and I go over here to accounting, and over here in accounting, what you'll notice here is you'll see that, oh, accounting, why do we not offer two? Oh, it's down here, I'm sorry. So accounting 212.3, which is Spreadsheets 3-year certification. Now, what I have seen happen with the California Board of Accountancy, even though the designation is accounting 212.3, there is no accounting in the title. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to basically put this right over here for now as a group B or a business subject. Now, Sharon might be going into anxiety or crying. Sharon, I promise you, you're going to be okay. What we're just doing here is I'm being very conservative. That may be accepted as an accounting class because it has accounting 212.3, but because accounting is not in the title, that's where my concern is. And by the way, do we all know that we can use Excel on the CPA exam? Does everybody know that? Yes, yes, no, no, maybe, maybe.
Did not know that. Thank you.
You can use Excel. And in saying that, my suggestion to you really would be is to use it as much as you can as you're going through and taking your classes. Okay, so, and we're gonna kind of make this a little bit more open. So we'll go over here to business subjects, and then I'll take this and put this over here. So introduction to PC apps, brief course in calculus, which I think it sounds like math 11. If I look over here and computer science and information systems. So these two right over here, I'm going to be putting over here in group B. Music appreciation. Let's take a look. Music appreciation, I don't think we're going to be lucky on that one. So unless we're singing accounting songs, like my accounting lullaby, which is awesome, we're just going to leave that right over here. Okay, over here, financial accounting, payroll accounting and taxation. Over here, accounting subjects. Okay, over here for, let's go through here. So programming with C, microeconomics. Okay, both of these over here are going to go down here into my business subjects. Now for debate, I don't really see anything here that goes and talks about debating unless I'm missing something that's in that course title. So we're just going to go ahead and take this and put this up here with our general classes. Okay. Now, what's interesting, so physical anthropology, let's take a look at this over here. Anthropology is a social science, but we've already put a communications class into that category. So what we're going to be doing, so right over here, we did communications fundamentals. And if I look over here, if this is an introduction to physical anthropology, right over here, more than likely, it's going to be a same skills-based course. So what I'm just going to do with this one is I'm going to put this up here with our general classes. Okay, business law. Oh, sure, question?
On the unit requirement sheet.
Yes.
So under accounting study, in the, does that say you can only have 3 units into skill-based, 3 units into foreign language, and
yeah, so if we look right here, it says maximum of 9 semester units of another academic work relevant. So, but it's a maximum of 3 from any one area, right? So that's why, like right over here, like that physical anthropology, we already put a communications class into that area, and that's why I took that out.
Okay. So you can't have more than 1 class in any of them.
You can't have one more. The units will still count, and that's what's really important, right? So when we're targeting the 150, this will count towards the 150. It's not going to count, though, towards the 78 that are in these areas, or the 24, 24, 20, and 10. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so right over here, right, we're coming down over here. So in any of the following areas. So business, government, and society, business law. So right over here, if I'm going over here into ethics study, okay, when I look at business law, this can definitely count over here into this group D. Right now, with American government, right, as I'm looking at this description down here, business, government, and society, right? Could that count there? Well, I would probably say, because it has basically government in the title, if that's truly what that class is, I would put that down over here as well. Okay. Managerial accounting and individual income tax for both federal and state. We're going to put those courses right up here into accounting subjects. Okay. Now, we've got here something called assembly language. Sharon, are you on the call by chance?
Yes.
Sharon, hi, Sharon. So, hey, so do you know what the designation, what is assembly language? Like, what does that start with? Is it like language class, or do you know what the designation is?
It's a computer science class.
Assembly languages?
Yeah. Okay,
perfect. Okay, so all these here, so assembly language, macroeconomics, introduction to computer systems, C++ programming, Python, all these classes right over here will go into group B, or business subjects, because we see all those computer-based courses, that's where they're going to be ending up. And Sharon, while I have you on the phone, or while I have you on the call, for data structures, is this also a computer class, or is this something different? Sharon? Sharon, are you there by chance? You just unmute yourself.
Wait.
Is data structures, okay. Is that class also, is that also a computer-based class?
Yes.
Okay, and then assembly language, that's also computer-based?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So right over here, so data structures, we're gonna go ahead and put that in group B. So clearly you can tell that I need to take more Excel. Okay, and then over here, intermediate accounting, that's gonna be a slam dunk. We're gonna put that right over here. Accounting ethics, we're gonna put that into our ethics study. And then assembly language, that's also a computer class. So I'm gonna put that over here. So let's go back to, and I think I double counted that. Yeah, so we're gonna get rid of this here. Okay. Okay, now business communication, let's take a look here. So if I'm looking at business communications, right, it can go into a few places. Clearly, it can go up here, right, into business related subjects. And that's where we'll put it. Okay, so right over here, I'm gonna go ahead and put that right over here. Okay, and then we're gonna get to the AP exams. Okay, so right over here, if I'm before we get to the AP exams, the first thing I'm gonna go through and do is take a look here at what we have here for Sharon. So Sharon has 23 accounting units, right? So Sharon's gonna need one more accounting course, which when she takes Intermediate Accounting 302B, I have a feeling you're gonna be okay. So right over here, and you also have not taken cost, there's a lot of other classes you have not yet done. So you're gonna need one more accounting course here. Let's take a look at the business, this side of it over here. So here you've got 43, right? The most I need over here is basically 24. So my overage is going to be 19 semester units, right? So what does that mean I can go through and do with those 19 units? Right over here, I can basically put, now here's where you get into some interesting things. Because we already put communications in here, right? And I need a total of 20. The minimum of accounting is 6. The other 14 in total have to come basically from these areas. So right over here, I could basically say my overage is 19. So basically I'm going to take 11. So right over here, so this is going to be business subjects overage. And I'm looking at this here now. So right over here for accounting study, I clearly need another, this is need more one more accounting unit. Okay, so right over here, I'm going to have for my accounting study need 6 units of accounting. So my deficit really here for Sharon, right? And again, this is my best estimate. So in order for Sharon to become, if we're just looking at what she has to date, and this is without really taking any types of upper division classes at Fullerton, she would need another 7 semester units of accounting courses to go through and to meet that requirement. Now, the other thing is over here too, is that, well, she's met all the requirements, but what else does she need? Clearly, she's gonna need more units because right over here, you've got a total over here. This is 12. You've got 23 coming over here from accounting subjects. You have a total of 43 coming from over here. You've got the communications class basically over here from accounting study. And then from ethics study, you've got 4, 3, and 3. Notice here I did not count this 11 because this is coming from here. So the total number of units that Sharon needs, or that Sharon already has right now, she has 91 semester units. So she will need, as soon as she finishes those accounting classes, gets her bachelor's degree, and then gets another, really, it's about another 60 units, she should be in pretty good shape. Now, one thing, and I'll answer any questions in just a second, one of the things is over here is for the AP exam. So going back to what I was saying earlier, right, can these AP exams count? The answer is, Sharon, do any of these appear on your IBC transcripts?
No, they don't.
Okay, is there a way we could get them to appear on your IBC transcript?
I think I'll ask Melanie about that.
Yeah, I would ask Melanie, because if you can get, if they show the units on a community college or other transcript, you can use those towards the 150.
Okay.
Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right, so So before I go to the next one, are there any questions on what I just did? Please ask questions. Hopefully this is really the best way to learn how to go through and do this. If I'm going too quick or if I need to slow down, please ask. Okay. All right, very cool. All right, so we're going back over here, and I think this is Brian's. So as I'm looking at this over here, so Brian's got right over here, basically. So I'm just going to take this one unit off here. So he's got a total of 21 of accounting. So he took accounting 301A, 301B, 302, 307, 308, 401, and then 402. We've got over here the business related subjects. What's good about all of this is that right over here, this is great. Okay, so under the accounting study, the one thing I would do a little bit differently is I would actually add in some lines here. What I would do here, and this is just I'm going to take these ones up and basically move these classes here. And then now when I go through this here, so this is a total of 29. So the total of 29 that is coming in from right here, the most you need is 24. And so as I go through in this, that you need those 5 units are going to come down here. So overage from group A, accounting subjects. Okay, so, and let's go through and see right here. Okay, so right here we've got accounting ethics, legal environment and business law, organizational behavior, introduction to logic. So what we may do is this one right here is we may take this legal environment and business law, and if we needed to, we could actually go through up here and move it into business law right up here. So this could actually go up over here. I could take this class and move this over here to the accounting study. So if I look at this over here, okay, so this is actually 15. Okay, so the way this would work, right, is I think that, Brian, are you on the phone by chance? Okay, I don't think Brian's with us right now. So for this particular student, what I would say is that, you know, it looks like that with another unit of accounting, that the student would basically meet the educational requirement to become a licensed CPA. And if there was something that was not in here already, then that just might be something I'm just like missing, but it would just be one more accounting course. So any questions on that one right there?
Can I ask a off-topic question?
Sure.
All right. If I'm like 10 units shy of like the total, is there any way I can like avoid committing to higher education and take like courses at a CC or whatnot to fulfill the last 10?
Yeah, we're not going off topic. This is really important because you're giving me my plug, right? This is the best thing ever, right? So you're giving me a great lead in. Yeah, no, the answer is that you can take it from, as long as the class is, as long as you're taking it from an accredited institution, you can take it from anywhere. If you want to take underwater basket weaving, or that was always the joke when I was growing up, or if you want to take some class, as long as that it's accredited, you should be good to go. So IVC is definitely accredited.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so you can take them wherever you want to go. And that's really, it comes down to like, look, in terms of like the master's degrees, the like, in some subjects, it really makes sense. Like taxation, if you're going to go on in tax long-term, right? If that's what your goal is, you're going to want to get a master's in taxation. You're going to want to go get a JD or Juris Doctorate, maybe even an LLM, if that's what you're going to be going through. And after you get your CPA license, you'll need that additional education. A master's in accountancy, just look at the curriculum. The one thing about accounting is once we get through intermediate accounting, there's really not a lot of places you can go, because in accounting, we're really learning much more of a practical skill. If you've taken intermediate and advanced, you can pretty much figure out most of the issues that are going to be coming up when you're working in public accounting. So my response to you would be something like, hey, do you need to get a master's in accountancy? And I said, well, if you got your degree from a foreign country and you want to work for a big 4 firm, maybe, but generally you can take those 10 units wherever you need to take them.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've handled Sharon's, and we did Brian's right over here. Let's go ahead and take a look over here at the next one. Okay, so this is, I really like this one because this actually brought up a few different things. So this is, and let's see if, so Trong, Trang, how do I pronounce your name? Is it Trang or is it Trong, or how do I pronounce it? Trang, can I unmute you? Okay, well, if you can, just try to unmute yourself. So right over here, this is what I found really interesting, because Rio Hondo College has cooperative work experience. Also here too is that there's a VITA course, meaning that there's a volunteer income tax assistance class. Based on my reading of it, and when I went to the catalog over at Rio Hondo and I took a look at it, what I kind of came up with is I believe that this Accounting 108 and Accounting 109 would both count towards the accounting subjects. So right over here, you've got your financial, your managerial, Excel for accounting. This works, unlike IVC, because IVC, we just call it spreadsheets 1, 2, and 3. We do not call it Excel for accounting. Then over here, you've got VITA, and then Introduction to Cost Accounting, which was taken at Rio Hondo, Accounting 301A, 301B. So here's a great one right over here. So Accounting 203, if at a community college, generally, if you see the numbers 1 through 99, it transfers to a UC or a Cal State. If you see the numbers 200 to 299, or basically 100 to 199, that will transfer to a Cal State. If you see the numbers of 200 and up, that generally does not meet the requirements to transfer, but it will count by the Board of Accountancy. So even though the student has taken both cost accounting at Rio Hondo and they took it over here at Cal State Fullerton, both of these should basically meet that requirement. So right over here, the student had a total of 32 units. The required amount is 24. The overage here is 8 semester units. That then comes down over here into Group C, which will be like 9 units. And then over here, you've got Group B, which again, the student clearly meets the different requirements. The only things I would say right over here is that the student would more than likely need a course in accounting ethics, which of course she should be taking at Irvine Valley College, nowhere else. And then right over here, I'm just kidding about that. And then over here, when you're looking at the other part of it, which is the accounting study, which I think she, oh yeah, here you go. Down here, she actually already put, so she's already taken accounting ethics. Sadly, I did not get to see her in my class. And then there you go. So those are the other way, that's going through and doing that mapping. Okay, so Trang, do you have any questions, or did that make sense? I've kind of already corresponded with you. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Was there anything else that I put in my email to you, or anything else that I missed that I didn't go over just now?
No, everything is good. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So here we go. Okay, so let me see right over here. Okay, so Lydia, I think you're finally on the phone, and we're at 70 minutes in, and it's going to be exciting because we're going to finally help you out here. Okay.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah, it's exciting, right? So there we go.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. Yay.
Good, good, good. This is a good time. Okay, so right over here, we got accounting 1A, accounting 1B, Saddleback. Okay, I'm just kidding. So right over here, you got accounting 1A, accounting 1B.
Yeah, I took 1A with you.
Oh, that's right. My God, that's how crazy this is. It's been like, when did you have me for 1A?
A long time ago, like 2017.
Wow.
And it was actually online, so I don't expect you to remember me at all.
I don't think I ever taught it online though before recently.
It was, yeah, it was online.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess I must have been online somewhere. Okay.
Yeah.
So right over here, right? So financial accounting, perfect. Managerial, perfect. You're in process right now with intermediate, perfect. Costs, tax information systems. Now, the one thing here is that kind of what I was saying earlier is that I would move, just to be fully safe, I would move this class here down to the business subjects. And there's a real reason why. And it's just because I have seen, although I have seen some students basically where it's been accepted, I have also seen some students where it has not been accepted. So if I go here, okay, perfect. Okay, so for accounting study, for auditing, great. Okay, so that's, and what I'm gonna do too here is let's go ahead and move your auditing up. Okay, and then over here, Math 11, that's fine. Communication, Spanish, Management 1, Math 11, Forensic, okay. And then Legal, Environment, and Business, that's fine, okay. So, so Lydia, so right now, so in addition to, so how many total semester units do you have right now with all your transcripts?
I have a lot. I have a lot of classes. I just picked and choose kind of what would go into these places, but I literally have a lot. Like
awesome. I love it.
When I transferred into Fullerton, I had like 90 something or 100.
That's
amazing.
70. See, that's what I love. I think I'm the only faculty that wants you to take more classes at IBC.
Yeah, I changed my major a few times, and I just have way too many units. But
that's
now
cool.
It's turning out to be something good for the CPA.
No, it's all good, right? So
yeah.
So we're gonna do here though, right? As far as like what you need, as far as the classes go, I would say you're gonna. So if you take these classes here, then 2 are gonna drop down to here. And then I would say that, so say we'll call this, okay, to group C. And then over here, we'll basically, okay, so what I would say right here, so Lydia, what I would do is I would take another 4 accounting classes, 4 units of accounting. And again, like if you wanted to take accounting 204, accounting 205 at IBC, if you're looking for, or if you want to take intermediate accounting with me in the fall, it should be a lot of fun. But I think you're suffering through intermediate accounting once is generally enough.
Yeah, it seems like enough.
Yeah, so I would just choose other accounting classes.
Okay.
So yeah, just, and that's really what I would do, but you're in pretty good shape.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, I'm going to take ethics with you in the summer as well. Yeah, thank you so much, Professor.
No worries. And by the way, if anybody who's on the call right now, if you need to get into one of my classes and if it's full, just email me beforehand and just say that you were on this call and then just say, hey, Tchaikovsky, I need the class, so I'll do whatever I can to help you out.
And so basically, sorry, everything was fine except for those spreadsheets courses, right?
Right, you'll need to go, right, so the spreadsheet courses are tough because I've heard of so going over here to, let's see here.
I was so confused because it says accounting on the course.
Well, I know, and that's why, but if you, so this is my mapping. This is when I went through and I basically went through and took all of IBC's classes and I basically put these up against the requirements, right? And the reason why I did the spreadsheets 1, 2, and 3, because even though these do have an accounting prefix, right, as does business mathematics, it doesn't say accounting spreadsheets
In the course
in
description.
the course
Okay.
description. And that's why they, ultimately the Board of Accountancy may say, oh, this looks great. But what I'm more fearful of is that if you count it as something and then later on they say no, then you don't want to be in that situation. More than likely, what would happen though is because if you take all these classes, because you have to take them anyways, they would tell you you could sit for the exam, right? Because to sit for the exam, you only need these first 2 areas, right? To sit, all you need is this. So if you sent your transcript in to the Board of Accountancy, they would say, Lydia, you're fine to go sit through the exam. However, you need X number more of accounting unit or accounting units. So then that's why I would go through and then, take like that 1 or 2 extra accounting classes and just get that out of the way. And if you take accounting 204 or 205 at IBC, those tend to be, there's no prerequisite in terms of the accounting. So those tend to be a little bit on the more bookkeeping oriented type side, but those will actually help you meet the requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no worries.
All right.
Okay, so the next one right over here is, this is for Ben, so right over here. So for the accounting courses, financial accounting, general accounting, absolutely yes. At IBC, we have a class called General Accounting or Accounting 215. That will also help you meet the requirements, managerial, intermediate accounting, auditing, absolutely correct, QuickBooks, accounting ethics. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of move some of these around. So we're going to go over here and we're going to do group D. So I'm going to take this accounting ethics and I'm going to move this over here to group D, or the ethics study. And I'm also going to do the same thing with auditing, because I think we may have enough in terms of auditing. Okay, and so now if I go through and add these up, okay, so right over here, so the student right here, they've taken all these different classes. And so once we drop, basically once you take out, this is the excess over here is going to be 6 semester units. So over here, we've got group C. So Ben, I'm not sure if you're on the line right now. I'm not sure if you're here, but wherever you are in spirit, what I would be saying is that over here, basically the business, the legal environment of business, this could also count over here, and then these other courses. So I would probably want to just talk with the student, just because when we're looking at this right over here, we need to get close to that 150 semester units. And so I would want to know to see if the student had a bachelor's degree or something else. But this is a great example in terms of how IBC or Saddleback can actually help you meet those various different requirements. Okay. So is there, now we're kind of like in open discussion time. And are there any questions that you want to ask about recruiting? You want to ask about more questions about the educational requirement? I will go through and post links to this presentation or our video presentation after our meeting's done, but is there anything else that you'd like me to talk about?
Yeah, I have another question.
Sure.
In regards to the CPA, like prep stuff for the exam,
Sure.
increase our chances in getting hired if we had that already like on the way and started?
So generally the answer is maybe, right? The thing that you, and so I'm going to go back over here to my faculty website, and to get to my faculty website, you want to start at ibc.edu. You'll then go to this link up here that says faculty and staff. So you're going to click on that. Once you get over here to faculty and staff, you're going to go down here to faculty, and you're going to go to faculty websites. Once you get to faculty websites, you're going to look me up by going to Tchaikovsky, which is right here. And then you're going to land in terms of the homepage, which should hopefully open up soon. Okay, there we go. So right over here, I have a whole, if you kind of go scroll down to the bottom. So as you'll see right over here, over time, I've been writing articles, right, about how do you go through and recruit, how do you go through an interview, because you're not the first person to go through and ask me this question, right? I really feel as though my job is trying to help you get a job. And so the process for interviewing and everything else really hasn't changed over time. There's some nuances that are a little bit different. But if I come down over here and look at the Jumpstart Your Accounting Career ebook, when you're going to interview, right, and this is really, you know, this whole process is, why are they spending so much, like, why is Meet the Firms so important? Like, why is that so important? And it's because when they're hiring you, right, they're not just looking for grades. And the best example I can give you is a student who had a 3.9 GPA. They went to UCLA, and that was a 3.9 GPA from IBC. They had like a 3.7 in business economics at UCLA, which is insane. Very, very good grade point average. But they did not get a job. And because they spent so much time in school and not recruiting, that was a huge problem. There was another student of mine, though, who is now working for one of the big four firms. He did an internship. He did the summer leadership program. He's done everything, and he's already started there full time. And so, you know, when you're looking at recruiting, the answer to recruiting is that you want to, obviously recruiting now is going to be over until fall, right? There's probably certain things you can do in terms of working on your resume, but what's going to make you the most attractive as a student to a firm is, the first thing is going to be, do you have social abilities, right? And the real thing is over here, and the reason why social skills are so important, because once you start working as an auditor for one of these firms, you are never in the office. You are always out at the client. So what they're really trying to do is, in all like these different these different recruiting events, they're really trying to gauge, how do you interact socially with others? And so this is really why that so how many of you have been to Meet the Firms?
I've been there.
Okay, so after Meet the Firms, what ends up happening after Meet the Firms is that all the firms, literally, they'll bring their whole recruiting team in, and they'll say, what did you think of persons X, Y, and Z? They will do that debriefing after every single Meet the Firms, because what they're trying to do is that, you know, how did this person act with you? What did they say to you? What did this go? And so that's what they're trying to go through and do, is trying to figure out, how does somebody, you know, at these different events, do they treat one person differently? How did they get along? You know, what did they talk about, right? When you're going to a Meet the Firms event, last thing you ever want to do is to talk about accounting. And I know that sounds crazy, but the last thing you ever want to do is talk about accounting. Get the person you're talking to talk about themselves, because, you know, passing the CPA exam and interviewing is great. I mean, that's going to make it look good. But the thing is, though, is you have to be recruiting now, right? So if I was, out of curiosity, when are you graduating from Fullerton?
I'm graduating hopefully at the end of this summer.
Okay. And so you do not have a job as of right now, right?
No, I mean, I have something lined up with like a campus recruiter for KPMG, depending upon grades and CPA eligibility.
Okay. So what I would say is that, like, look, I mean, like with a recruiter, like at KPMG, I mean, and have you been spending a lot of time with KPMG and meeting with them and everything else?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So if they're telling you that, okay, well, we're going to extend an offer to you if you get at least a B average in the remainder of your classes, and you have 150 semester units, if that's what your offer is dependent upon, then you're going to want to find whatever way you can do to meet those requirements, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a formal offer. So.
Right. So I mean, that's the whole
But
thing.
would you recommend at least like postponing the like paying for the prep stuff?
Well, if you okay, so
that they do it.
So here's the thing. If you have an offer, if they've given you a written offer for basically if they've given you a written offer for a job, right? If they said, hey, here's your offer contingent upon this, you can take that offer letter and go to Becker CPA Review, where KPMG has a deal, and they'll give you the review course for free.
Oh, perfect. All right.
So once you have an offer from most accounting firms, Becker will generally make the course available to you if that firm has a deal with Becker. Deloitte, I think, has both Roger and Becker. And again, going back to like when I went through and when I went through and studied and passed the exam back in 1991 of May, right? I used what was then known as called the Mark Doberman CPA review class. And one of my instructors in that class was a guy named Roger Phillip. And Roger Phillip, if any of you do not know who he is Roger CPA Review. And he is a total spaz. I mean, he's amazing, but he's like the biggest, he is like so much energy. It's like crazy. And it's like, when it comes to choosing a CPA review, you want to go with, obviously price is a huge deal, but at the same time, it's like, who are you going to be learning the best from, right? Who is it that's going to basically cap? Because look, getting through CPA review, is it painful? And all I can say is, like, when I went through it every Saturday for, I think it was like 16 weeks for 8 hours a day, because I took all 4 parts at once. And basically every Saturday in Isla Vista, I would get up, ride my bike onto campus. I would then sit in 8 hours for all those Saturdays going through CPA review and then studying for the exam. And so now all of that is done online. But again, going through and doing CPA review, it's a lot of work. I mean, it takes a lot of discipline. You'll go crazy at certain points in time, but and you know, when you get to that point, I've given my students tips on like how to survive it. But yeah, that's what you want to go through and do and if you can get the exam done, I would get the exam done before you started. But again, it's just going to depend on your situation.
All right. Thank you so much.
Did that answer your question, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It all did. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. Any other general questions? I can answer anything. Almost anything. Please ask questions. You want to know about recruiting? How do you go through? What happens if someone refuses to sign off on your work experience? What else could we do? What else would you like to talk about? Wow. Is the conference? Oh, Chelsea, how are you?
Hi, I do have a question because, like, just as you said, like, we need extra 30 units to like meet the 150
Yes.
requirement thingy. Because I got 13 unit transfer, I still have 17 unit left. So I just thinking about, should I just like take random class to make up the 17 units, or should I just like do double major, or?
So it's a great question, right? So I think that if you were to double major, right, and if you are like, clearly one part of it's going to be financial, right? Is that, do you have the financial ability to go through and to do a double major and take? Because look, if you're a California resident, taking the classes at a community college is going to be about $46 per unit. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that is a significant cost savings versus whatever Cal State Fullerton is charging right now. right? But at the same time, if you're double major, and I think you were mentioning earlier, this was be like in information sciences and accounting.
Yeah.
What I would say is actually with that is that with that particular combination, I think that the investment you make, as long as you're, so look, the biggest thing that all of you, if you have not yet taken Microsoft Excel, you're absolutely foolish. And if you don't know Excel, you're at such a huge disadvantage. And if that information systems major and the classes you're taking are not only going to help you out with, going through with big data and going through and using things like Tableau, I think Professor Morris does a really good job in terms of having those integrated into our class. You're going to be behind. Just because every single recruiter I've spoken with, all of them have shared with me that if you don't have Excel when you're first starting, it's not going to be good. So to answer your question, if you think that and Chelsea, do you have a job lined up yet, or what's your employment status?
So currently I'm like a freshman student. So right now I'm applying for the Big Four, like the freshman program, which is the big thingy. And also I got an internship at Southern California Edison in the audit service. So I'm not really sure how it's gonna be. It looks like.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure. Like.
Yeah. No. So Chelsea, so like you still have a long way to go, right? So I think that the answer is that look, the best thing you could be doing is take as many Excel classes as you can. IVC offers them. Take it as Accounting 112.1, 112.2, and then 212.3. And if you go, like, say, for example, like this summer, right? So hold on. If I go over here to, so if I go over here to IVC and I go to the class schedule, I'm going to go to the summer session and check the courses for summer. I'm going to go right over here to accounting. What I would suggest doing is there's Spreadsheets 1, and then there should be a Spreadsheets 2 class coming soon. But I would take Spreadsheets 1 in fall of 2020. I would take Spreadsheets 2, and then maybe in spring you can take Spreadsheets 3. But the more spreadsheets classes you have, the better off you're going to be. The more computer science you have, the better off you're going to be. And that's really, I think that that's great what you're doing right now in terms of having like doing the freshman advantage program. And I think that over time, I think that it's going to, your answer, like, look, you have so much more time to go through and do this, is that you'll just need to make that decision once you're probably about a year from now, maybe 2 years. But I think that if I was to double major choosing information systems and then also, or the ISDS and then the accounting, I think is a great way to go.
Okay, got it.
So you don't look, I wouldn't stress out in terms of like, look, you're so far ahead of the game being at the freshman level that's really what the most important thing is that you're way ahead of the curve. And so because you're so far ahead, if you make a mistake, it's not gonna be the end of the world. And so just focus on your classes, do the best you can, learn as much as you can. Your internship this summer is at Southern California Edison.
Yes.
That may be an online internship, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Judging the way things are going right now. But yeah, just use this time though to try to learn as much as you possibly can. And, I'm basically one of my fellow instructors at IVC gave me her Excel book. And so I'm going to try to use this time to relearn Excel or to learn Excel properly. So it doesn't have to be so sloppy when I'm going through and using Google Sheets.
Okay.
So, but Chelsea, that's great though. And so, hey, I would just look, and when I was at UC Santa Barbara, I started off I was biz econ or business economics, and then I wanted to be a film major, and then I went back, and the reason why I chose accounting was that there was a job for me upon graduation, and that there can't really be enough said about that because I graduated in '91, and the economy then was terrible. but I was one of the few students who actually had a job upon graduation. And that's why accounting is so great, because the recruiting happens while they're in school. And all I can say is that if anybody who is, if you're not considering an accounting major, just the advice I give to my students is I say, look, go to your 4-year school that you're going to transfer to and see who is recruiting for your major. And most students by default will choose accounting, which gives you a great base for for your first 2 years of your career.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions? Or Carlos, any questions? Danielle. Hey, Danielle. Harjop, Lydia, Richard, Wrong, Sharon, or Trong. Please ask questions. This is a great time to go through and do it. Chelsea, anything else?
Oh, I do have one more.
Sure, ask as many as you want. This is we have till 2.
Okay, so actually, I
forever.
have no idea like all the different service lines do. Like, do you know like audit, tax, assurance?
Okay, so right. So generally, like when you're first starting out in public accounting, right? You're gonna generally you'll go into it's either audit or attestation or tax, unless you're in a very much more like a specialized field, say something like ISDS. But generally, you'll start off at one of those parts. I generally recommend students to start out in audit, and it's just because you'll get a pretty broad base education, just because what you're doing in auditing is you're basically going through, and you've taken financial accounting already, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so what we do is the client gives you their financial statements, and you're sitting there and saying, oh, how do I verify that this amount of accounts receivable is correct? How do I go through and look at cash? How do I look at payables? How do I look at, and so when you're doing that in auditing, effectively, there's no way you can go through and audit every single transaction. It's just impossible to do for a business. Think about Amazon. Could you audit or could you verify every single transaction? And you'd be spending a lifetime there. The value of an auditing, working in auditing, is because you have to document how a business works, or a part of their business works, which means that you're going to be sitting down with CFOs, you're going to be sitting down with controllers, and they're going to walk you through, okay, well, before we make a sale, how does this work? Well, we first run it. If the customer is looking for credit, we're going to run a credit or a background check. Once the background check comes by, then we put it to our credit department, who then analyzes and determines how much credit we're going to be giving a person. So when you have an audit background, because you have to learn how businesses work, that's the real value of working in auditing. Now, at the same time, in terms of longevity or in terms of your career, it's a little bit different, because if I'm the audit partner, and say I'm at Ernst & Young, I'm the audit partner, I'm the partner on Facebook. If I decide to leave Ernst & Young, can I take Facebook with me as a client, as an audit partner? And that answer is absolutely not. So the client can't go away with the partner, right? It just doesn't happen in auditing, right? And maybe for some smaller places it might, but generally for the large ones it doesn't. But on the same side, right, if you're looking at tax, why is tax so different? Now, tax is one of those things where the clients will follow you, because once you develop that relationship, because really with tax, you're trying to help your clients. Basically, it's not tax evasion. You're trying to help them structure transactions to help them avoid unnecessary taxation. And so with tax, it's very, very different, because you're looking at business transactions and saying, okay, what are the tax consequences of these? And so with tax, you're in the office more. But I've had some students of mine who they've done audit and they've done tax and they really like tax. I've had other students who've done both and they like audit more. So that's really kind of the purpose of your internship, is to really kind of figure out what's going to be best for you. So you don't really need, again, at your level right now, you don't really need to decide. Sometimes you take a job just because you need to get your foot in the door. And that is also a huge deal as well. So if only tax is available and I want to go work at Ernst & Young, then maybe I take that tax internship. So those are all like different types of considerations when you're going through and doing it. One of the things I will say though, is that the most important thing you can be doing for your first year is to be working under a California licensed CPA. And the reason why that is because if you're not, you need to get that experience in. Because if I go back and I look over here, is like, what is required for me to become a CPA, right? And right over here, it's like, okay, got the education done, right? I've passed the exam, I've done the ethics test. I need to have a year of work experience. And I have former students of mine who have passed the exam, who have taken the PEF, who have also gotten the education, but they haven't been working under a licensed California CPA. And that's what's so difficult. And I am trying as an instructor to figure out a way through cooperative work experience, is that if I could basically find a way to make that happen. But as of right now, I have not yet been successful in terms of doing that. So getting that year of work experience is really critical. I mean, look, Chelsea, the thing I would want to see is Chelsea Lee CPA. That's what I want to see, 5 years from now, right? You want that CPA license. And that's really, the license will never leave you as long as you do the right thing. I always make the joke in my classes, is because I'm a licensed attorney and a CPA. I don't really, it's not that I don't, if I had to choose between the licenses, I would of course choose to keep the CPA license, because the bar license is great and it's a great, the legal education is wonderful, but I would never want to give up my CPA license.
Yeah, okay, got it. Thank you.
Sure. Do you have any more questions, or Chelsea? You're asking a great question. Any more questions? Okay, so Carlos, Danielle, you have any questions? Harjap, Richard, please ask questions. Wrong, Sharon, any other questions? Trong?
I was actually wondering, so do you need to have your bachelor's when you sit for the exam?
Yes, you need to have so look, if you submitted your transcripts, they'll basically say, if your bachelor's degree is pending, they may allow you to sit. When I went through and did it, right, they basically said that you could take the CPA exam, but you had to have your bachelor's degree within 120 days after basically after sitting for the exam. So they may, and actually the answer to the question is, I don't know, but I know that when I was going through and doing it, that was the requirement. I will share with you is that my biggest horrifying day was I had passed the exam in May of 1991. I passed all 4 parts. Then I got a letter from UC Santa Barbara saying that I didn't graduate, that I didn't have enough units. And so I was like so freaked out. But as it turns out, I had taken a summer school class at UCLA that they just hadn't picked up on the transcript yet. So once I got that sent in, it resolved itself. But, had that happened, that would not have been good, because it's like, you do not want to, and that's what's really important about the CPA exam, is you want to take it once and be done with it. You don't want, obviously now you're taking it in 4 parts, but you want to get it done as quickly as possible. I generally recommend to students is that if you can afford it, I would delay your start date at the firm and then just basically be studying for the exam beforehand, because you want to get that exam done prior to starting at a firm.
And then another question I had was, so I know that some firms, especially ones that have like offices like across the US. So like say I get my California CPA license, but then I decide that I want to like transfer to a different office,
Okay.
like another state, would I have to, what's the process to?
So what's really the question is that what kind of work, I mean, if you're doing auditing and you're going to be signing off on audit opinions, then more than likely you're going to also have to get the license to be moved over. Now, generally, if, you know, and this is what I was saying, like, you know, right up here at the very front. So I've seen, and one of my former students, Danielle Weissman, she now is working in New York for Ernst & Young. She did an internship here and then basically found someone who was wanting to switch and come into Orange County. And so she's now in New York. And what was interesting is I think New York, they looked at the transcripts and they said, oh no, you need more classes. And I think it was because it may have been like those Excel classes or something else. I have to actually ask her. But every state may have like little differences, right? So over here, like New York, you know, they want to see you take intermediate accounting at a 4-year school. Now, Sharon, to you, that's kind of irrelevant because I did take intermediate accounting at a 4-year school. So it just really depends upon like the particular state in terms of what they're looking for as far as the requirement goes. But generally, they will, look, the CPA exam is a universal CPA exam. It's not like the bar exam, right? So if I wanted to be an attorney in New York, I would have to pass the New York bar, right? The CPA exam is a uniform CPA exam. It's used in all 50 states. So really what it would come down to is you would need to look at what is like that state's, like what are like their licensing requirements. And generally California will generally be reciprocal with most of the other 49 states. And, you know, do you actually need to get it transferred over? Probably if you're signing off on certain things, the answer would be yes.
Okay, thank you.
And most firms, by the way, most firms pay for your license. They will pay you a bonus if you pass the CPA exam within a certain period of time, all those things. And just remember too, is that if you don't pass the CPA exam and you want to go move to like another firm, the other firm, or if you say, say if I'm at Ernst & Young and if I got the Becker materials for free and I don't pass the exam and then I leave Ernst & Young to go to another accounting firm, the Ernst & Young may say, hey, you need to pay us back for the Becker CPA review course. If that ever happens, depending on how you are recruited by the other accounting firm, generally the other accounting firm will generally pay for the course. So you just need to kind of just kind of keep all those different things in mind. The passing the CPA exam, though, I cannot tell you the importance of that and taking off time between when you're starting at the firm and then when you graduate. Give yourself enough time to pass that exam. The other thing I would share with you, and this is just from a conversation I had with a recruiter, is that she said, like, look, Bennett, if a student needs to, the worst thing you can do to a recruiter is say that, oh, I want to start in December. Oh, no, I now want to start in June. Oh, now I want to start in September. The firms are generally okay with you starting later as long as you're informing them about it, right? So if I'm graduating, say in May, and say, hey, I want to start in, you know, January of next year, the firms will generally say, oh, that's fine, right? You don't have to start in fall. So it just depends on the situation. You know, I think my student Danielle, I think when she was going to New York to go work, I think part of the condition of her going through and doing that was that she had to start at a certain point in time. So those are just kind of things just to kind of keep in the back of your mind as you're going through and doing this. It's really, once you're communicating a start date with the firm, I would try to go through and hold yourself to that. Okay. So Carlos, Chelsea, Danielle, Harjop, Rong, Sharon, or Trong, do you have any other questions? We good? Okay, everybody, thank you for being on the call here today. Greatly appreciate it. What I will be doing is waiting for this to process on Zoom. I will then post this up onto YouTube. Hopefully it's a public lecture. I don't think I said anything on this lecture here too crazy. We'll be posting this up onto YouTube. And what I will also be doing is posting up links to everything I was going through here on today's presentation. So everybody have a great day. I'll hopefully be seeing you soon online. And if you need anything else, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I believe that my email was on the invitation, but you can also reach me at btchaikovsky@ivc.edu. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah.
See you later.